Raised by wolves with canine DNA in his blood, having trained more than 24,000 pets, helping you and your fur babies thrive. Live in studio with Will Bangura, answering your pet behavior and training questions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host and favorite pet behavior expert, Will Bangura.
Would you like to go on, Keith?
Y'all ready for this?
Today, I'm joined by Drayton Michaels, a dog trainer and educator, author, and longtime advocate for humane, force-free training. Drayton began working with dogs in New York City in the year 2000 as a dog walker and has spent the past 25 years working hands-on with thousands of dogs and pet guardians, averaging about 400 cases a year. He's a graduate of the Academy for Dog Trainers and completed advanced coursework in learning and behavior through Dr. Susan Friedman's Living and Learning with Animals program. He's the creator of the documentary, The Price of Pain, which examines the real-world behavioral and physical fallout from shock and prong collars through the voices of dog professionals and different pet guardians. He also produced the Pitbull Hoax, the first documentary focused on debunking myths surrounding the breed, pit bulls. And he's also appeared in national media, including NBC's Today Show, WPIX Channel 11, and Dog Fancy magazine, discussing positive evidence-based training and the failures of breed-specific legislation. In 2024, Drayton released the Puppy Parents Handbook, a practical guide to raising puppies using positive reinforcement, thoughtful socialization, and relationship-based training. Some of the areas that Drayton is passionate about and what we may speak to today are understanding behavior in depth, the long-term consequences of aversive tool use, advocacy for force-free training, the push to ban shock and prong collars, and how professionals can do this work ethically without burning out. Drayton, thanks for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. For people meeting you for the first time, what do you want them to know about you in the first 60 seconds?
That I'm no BS. I don't have any time for nonsense in regards to people who want to make excuses for shocking and choking dogs or blaming them or ascribing some moral imperative to them that they have some sort of need to disobey humans. And that I use applied behavior analysis when I'm looking at behavior, right? Dog history, human history, environment, context, and then set about giving my clients a plan that will hopefully reduce their stress. I think I have a few seconds left in my 60-second intro here. And that there's no magic, right? Like dog training is work, regardless of whether you have a puppy or you have a dog with separation anxiety, whatever you're dealing with, humans have to change their behavior before the dog changes their behavior. And to quote Dr. Susan Friedman, behavior is in the environment, not in the dog.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, you've got a pretty big social media following.
I don't think so, but
well, I mean, yeah, there's others that have, hundreds of thousands, but sure. Comparatively, I've got a very small following, but you've got a pretty good following.
Yeah.
But that's always a challenge with social media. What part of your work tends to get misunderstood or maybe oversimplified online?
I don't really know. I don't really care too much about online. I mean, I came into dog training as an advocate, a trainer, and a filmmaker or media content creator, whatever you want to label it. So I started doing all of that at once. A lot of dog trainers, which is understandable, they begin as a dog trainer and then along the way, they either get comfortable or realize that they should have content. I make content to educate people. And the only time things go viral is when I give it zero thought and I just do it off the cuff. Like I have a video with a fake Rottweiler and a prong collar, and it's kind of a joke video, but it's serious, and it has over 100,000 views on Facebook. I don't, because it's meant to be funny, but it's also serious, right? I'm just asking the question, how does this not cause fear and pain? And of course, I'm not going to use a real dog. I'm going to use a fake Rottweiler dog. So, I just want people, especially dog guardians, to get information that's going to help them understand that their dog is innocent. There's this huge, and I'm sure because you're obviously an extremely educated person and you've done your work. And I want to say, I really respect the fact that you call yourself a behaviorist and you have a master's degree in behavior. That's really important because a lot of people call themselves behaviorists and they're not. So, I say I'm a behavior technician because training is a technical skill, but I want people to really know that like their dog's innocent and you don't have to use fear and pain and you don't have to blame your dog. You just, like I was doing a podcast the other day and I said, look, even if you hire a crappy positive trainer and they're out there, right? Like, I don't think every positive trainer is great. That's up to them to get great. But at least you're not going to be given information that's going to make your dog worse. Hopefully, right? Like hopefully you'll at least get information that'll keep your dog sound or not get worse. And as because you're a crossover trainer, as they say, right? There's a lot of people out. Good people get bad information all the time, and I'm sure you've seen that. Really people who are really good people, they have a good heart, they love their dog, but maybe it's like the Milgram experiment thing where there's a professional, so they're going to listen to what they're saying and not question it. But yeah, that's my whole goal with social media, is to create content that will help dogs and people. If other trainers like it, which they seem to, I've had a lot of trainers over the years use my videos for education because they don't make content. So that's always a nice thing to hear. But I'm certainly not looking to get like followers. It'd be great if I had 1 million followers, but I don't have time to sit around and play the hashtag game. And usually when you see me on social media, it's in between stuff and it's real quick. Like I don't sit around all day. I'm just like, oh, okay. And I just answer it or whatever and I move on. So yeah, that's my take on social media. And I think that all dog trainers, positive reward-based dog trainers, however you want to term our camp, that they should make media. They should flood culture. I would rather see somebody make a simple video on how to teach a puppy to sit than to see another post by that trainer about what they had for dinner.
Sure.
I mean, again, people can do what they want. I'm not here to like police the community, but when you think about time, attention, what you're putting out into culture, if you have social media, you have a stage, a microphone, and a camera. You're essentially your own media outlet. So if for all the jumping up and down and complaining, and it's, justified about all the bad stuff that goes on in the culture of dog training. I mean, if you look at my feed, it's, and if I post something up like that's not dog specific, it's at least behavior or neurologically specific, and it can be applied towards understanding dogs better. But that's how I look at it. It's just, you got a stage, a microphone, and a camera. How do you want to present yourself, and how do you want to help people and dogs?
No, that's a good point. Now, you've been doing this a while. What kind of case or what kind of cases have, if they have shaped how you think about dogs more than anything else?
Just dogs are innocent. It's been proven through enough study that dogs have the cognition of a 3-year-old kid for life, maybe a 4-year-old kid. Some people disagree with that, but based on all the data that we have about dog cognition, I always remind people dogs are smart at what dogs are smart at. Dogs are not smarter than humans. And again, you probably know this because you've got education in neurology, something about opposable thumbs and prefrontal cortex, right? Like we're just smarter than dogs. I always joke with dogs. I'm like, you're the looks, I'm the brains. Let me handle this, because a lot of people, again, they imbue that, whether it's anthropomorphizing or projecting or they're just repeating some cultural meme that they've been told that the dog has this motivation. And, I saw a presentation by Dr. Karen Overall years ago. It was a 6-hour presentation about neurology and, the dog brain and all this. And she said, look, if you don't have a PhD in neuroscience, a lot of this is going to go over your head. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Safe, unsafe, neutral. That's what your dog is doing all the time. They're figuring out if they're safe, unsafe, or if everything is neutral. And, I proceeded to take notes till my wrist hurt. That was it. I was like, okay, that's the hook. And that's something that everyone can understand, whether it's the 10-year-old in the house or the parents, whether it's somebody who's had a dog for 10 years or somebody who just got a new puppy. And again, I explained people that safe, unsafe, neutral is really what Pavlov figured out, that with predictive, predictive value, right? Dogs make predictions on the value of stimulus or sequences. So I try to keep things super simple. I come from music, songwriting. For me, it's all about hooks, right? Sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of the times, I think dog trainers make things really complicated and use way too many words. And, if it's just two dog trainers talking over a coffee, that's one thing. But again, you go back to social media. I always look at it like, okay, I'm not worried about the fellow trainers who are reading this. I'm concerned about mom and dad with a dog. They've friended me on this social media platform. Are they going to understand it? When I was at the Academy for Dog Trainers, at the time, it was taught out of the SPCA in San Francisco. It was 10 students at a time, 6-week course. So I was one of 10 students, and Jean Donaldson asked us the question, and everybody in the room was given all these really complicated answers. And she's like, okay, that's great, but now explain it to the 7-year-old. And again, that's how I look at it. And it's not that I teach down, or I don't ever try to demean or diminish somebody. I look at it like a PBS or, any show where like you just teach people in a straightforward manner. And if they have to Google a phrase or raise their hand and say, hey, what does that mean? You should be able to explain it simply, because it's not complicated. Environments are complicated. Dog training is easy. It really is. I don't care what the case is. Dog training isn't difficult. It's the environment. And then again, this because you work with people. I'm sure when it's just you and the dog, yeah, there might be challenges, but it's not like when it's you and the dog and a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a mom and a dad, and the elderly grandmother lives in the house, and the dog has a serious issue. And now you've got this whole crew that you've got to help, right? It's not just the dog. You've got to make sure that all these other people in the mix are getting the information and absorbing it and changing their behavior. And as we both know, changing human behavior is way harder than changing dog behavior.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A long time ago, I don't know where I heard it, another trainer, don't know who and how long ago, but the trainer said something like there are two buckets. There's the bucket of education and there's the bucket of experience. Now, you started out as a dog walker in New York City, and now you work with hundreds of dogs a year. Was there anything in those early years that taught you something that maybe formal education alone could not have taught you?
No, absolutely not. No, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was only a dog walker in New York City for about a year because I was at the dog park on 9/11, 2001. I heard the first plane come in, watched it hit. Yeah, so I was just, I was a rock and roller doing my thing, and my girlfriend got a dog. We had him on a prong collar. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But people were like, wow, you're really good with dogs. Here's the keys to my loft and $50, walk my dog. And I was like, okay, sure. It wasn't until we left New York City and my ex decided she wanted to become a dog trainer. And then for 5 years, I was her assistant, and I walked dogs in Seattle and basically, just assisted. And then we moved back to East Coast, Jersey. I was assisting for a couple years. And then I was like, okay, I'm making this documentary. I might as well have a couple of letters after my name and go to the Academy for Dog Trainers where my ex had gone. And because I said, I'm going to be out here defending dogs, so I should really know my stuff. No, I learned more after the Academy for Dog Trainers in private study, though the Academy gave me a super foundation. When I went to the Academy for Dog Trainers, the very first day we got dogs from the shelter, because they gave you dogs who were at the SPCA. Jean walked we had these private training pens, and she walked in, and in 10 seconds she went, "Your mechanics are flawless. The world is your oyster." She goes, "I got to go help everybody else." She just like, "So you're fine." So again, I'm sure you know who Bob Bailey is.
I do.
Yeah, Bob Bailey. All hail Bob Bailey, man. I saw him do a seminar a couple years ago, 2-day seminar, and he said dog training is a mechanical skill. It's all technical. And he said most of the trainers he hired for his company, he said they barely graduated high school. He goes, they didn't understand behavior in and out. He goes, I just showed them how to do it. They had the will and they had the desire and they had good mechanics, and they trained chickens and goats and pigs or whatever he needed them to train. So again, that was a light bulb. Like, yeah, those are clients, right? Some of the best trainers I've ever worked with were 10 years old because they have no baggage. They have the experience of going to school, following directions. The little girls dance, the boys play sports, and I show them how to do stuff and explain things. And then 2 weeks later, I come back for a follow-up, and the parents are like, look, I don't know what you're doing, but these kids are training the heck out of this dog. Me and my husband, we're having a hard time, but the kids, they got it. And, this, you've worked with enough dogs. You've been around. Dogs pick up on your mechanics. They pick up on your, right? And that's why those of us who are good with dogs, and I kind of hate that phrase, but those of us who have skills, that's why a lot of times when I'm in a session within like the first, provided the dog isn't afraid and there's no fear issues, the dog's just, happy-go-lucky and we need to get him to pay attention. Within like 5, 7, 10 minutes, the dog's doing all this stuff for me. And the people are like, how are you doing this? I'm like, well, I do it all the time. Your dog doesn't have any issues. So the dog runs to the front of my facility and barks at something. And I go, dog name, leave it. Bop, 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 bop. The dog runs over. Yes, treat. And the dog's like, hey, who's this guy? Because they've spent the last 2 years going, dog name, cut it out, stop it, dog name, cut it out. And the dog's like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to bark out the window. It's more reinforcing. So again, one of the things I explain to my clients is you have to become the most reinforcing thing in your dog's life. Your dog has to look at you like, man, you are a bank that always cashes out, man. Whether it's scent, food, toy tosses, access, kindness, whatever the reinforcer is, right? Because, a lot, and you've probably seen this, a lot of times people are in trouble with their dog because they've eroded the dog's trust. Too many cracks in the neck, one too many pops with the choke collar, right? I just had a case the other day. Dog's only like a year and a couple months, but he spent half of his life and critical development period in a shelter. And they used to walk him on a slip lead, which is just a choke rope. And so the dog has stress around the sequences of leashing up. Like he's back chaining it to, they're holding the leash. So, the dog's back chaining the event because in its formative years, especially, but, for half of its life, it was like, here it comes. I want to go out. I'm happy to get out of this place, but I'm going to get choked if I pull. Or, how many people walk this dog? Hundreds. And what did they do? Probably had all manner of aversives. So the dog isn't dangerous or concerning. He's just jumpy, mouthy, bitey because he's like, here, I don't know what's going to happen. As you know, right? And anybody watching this who's done work with dogs, and same with humans, right? We like consistency, right? Predictive value, right? Oh yeah, I like the harness that predicts I'm going for a walk. I like gathering scent and getting treats for training on walks. And that's why if your dog, doesn't have an aversion to the equipment or the sequences that, lead up to getting leashed up, they're probably not going to be mouthy and jumpy. I mean, they might get excited, but, it's because they're an excitable dog, right? But in this case, the dog was, a little mouthy, bitey, nothing serious, no bite record, just, and I explained that to him and they were like, oh, that makes so much sense. Right, because 100 other people would have told him your dog's aggressive, but he's not. There's no bite history, and he's clearly not afraid. He's confused, And I think, again, far too many people make things complicated about dogs when it needs to be made really simple. It doesn't do anybody any good to write a post on Facebook that's 75 paragraphs. Like, get a Substack, make a movie, right? Like, it really doesn't help anybody. I never read those posts. It's just like if somebody sends me an email with this much information about their dog, I read the first 2 sentences and the last 2 sentences. Like, fill out the behavior history form when you hire me, then I'll read it. Because then it's simple, it's checked boxes, it's 1 or 2 sentences, right? So, I'm not interested in stories, I'm interested in data, right? I need data. Like, for instance, like I got into a conversation the other day and I mentioned that, fear and frustration are hard to parse out sometimes, right? And one of the people were like, well, everybody on this list knows the difference. But I was like, well, but see, that's where you're being cocky and you're trying to flex. It's easy to parse out if I have data. For instance, if I have a dog that I've never worked with, and the people have had the dog for, let's just say, 2 months, and they don't have data for me, even though I make them fill out a 16-page behavior history form, they don't know everything, but the dog's reactive on leash, and the dog's reactive to dogs. I don't know if the dog's aggressive or not. I don't know. I have no data. Now you bring me that same dog and they go to daycare 3 times a week. They live with the dog. They play with the neighbor's dogs, and the people have had him for 4 years and the dog's never bitten a dog. They're just reactive on leash. Then yeah, your dog's not afraid. He's just really frustrated, right? He's just really pro-social, and dogs are socially compulsive, and his form of reinforcement is to bark at dogs. Now, I don't know how he is on leash greetings and face-to-face, but I know based on that data, 4 years, daycare multiple times, plays with dogs, no bite history. I'm going to bet my house the dog's not afraid. He's just frustrated. And okay, let's just start our counter conditioning and see how the dog does. It's up to honestly, it's at the end of the day, it's up to the client. I'm the coach. They got to put the ball in the hoop.
Let me circle back to something. You had talked about working with other trainers.
Well, I haven't worked with a lot of other trainers other than my ex-wife.
Oh, okay. And then maybe we'll skip that question.
I mean, I've interviewed a lot of trainers.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of trainers. I mean, I know a lot of trainers, but as far as working on cases, that hasn't really happened.
Because what I was going to ask was, what mistakes do you see newer professionals repeating because maybe they lack a lot of experience? I know you talked about complicating things, and that really resonates with me, because I'm often saying to others that, in basically those same words, it's not that complicated. Don't complicate it.
Well, when I look at people's posts or their videos, and let me put it in categories. When it comes to dog play, what I see is people aren't refereeing and shaping play enough, and they're letting dogs figure it out, which can be okay, but a lot of times it's not. And I tell people that's what dog fighters do. They let the dogs figure it out. I'm smarter than dogs. And, if I'm going to drill down and get specific, if I notice a dog is mouth first, right? Out of the gate, mouth first, which is fine. Dogs play with their mouth. But I notice the other dog's not reciprocal at all. Or I notice the dog is coming back and they're like, hey, that's too much. I'm immediately like, whoop, 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 up, 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 leave it. Let's go, up, up, up. Get the dogs over, treat. And then I'm going to decide, okay, am I going to do like little micro splits between, right? Am I going to let them play, but I'm going to keep my hand in the middle. I'm going to mitigate that stress. Right? Am I going to do that? Or are they really responding to my verbal cues, right? My prompt outs. Okay. Do I have to maybe have one dog on leash because there's a serious weight and strength differential? The smaller dog and the bigger dog are buddies. They're hugging and high-fiving, but the little dog's going to get overwhelmed. And then the little dog's going to tap out, or the little dog is going to start biting back. I don't know, right? As you know, a lot of stuff is in the category of it depends. Right. Sure. And if I have, a week to week with the dog, then, look, I'm on hard drive 124. Everything that I've done for the most part is on film. I film every class, 3-camera shoot, GoPro on the chest, GoPro on the wall, big camera in the back. Every dog walk is on film, GoPro on the chest, usually iPhone in the hand. Every client session is on film. at my house, at their house, or in my facility, I tell them ahead of time we're filming. And when they say why, I'm like, because we want 100% accuracy of what happened. Again, go back to Bob Bailey. When I saw him speak quite a few years back now, but he asked about 200 of us at the seminar, and he said, how many of you film your dog training? And I raised my hand, and I looked around, and there was maybe only like 3 or 4 other people. And he said, if you're not filming, you're kind of a fraud, because you don't know what happened, and memory can't be relied upon. And he said, look, you just need a tripod in the corner, right? You just need to get you, the dog, in the environment, and you'll have all the info you need. Well, me, being the, kind of intense person that I am when it comes to doing something, I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to film everything, and I'm going to do a 3-camera shoot at my facility and a 2-camera shoot at people's, so I admit that I don't expect dog trainers to get all Scorsese on it like I do, but so dog plays is something I see a lot of people could be way more proactive. And then with leash reactivity, one of the things that I see, and I even see some seasoned dog trainers doing this, is they're not using a marker, which, if it's a clicker or yes, that's a memory retrieval cue, right? Like that's letting the dog know, and it's salient, right? It's specific. That's why clickers and markers, if you only use it and pair it with food, they're so salient. They don't use a marker, so they're not issuing a memory retrieval cue, and they're tossing the food, which is slowing the reinforcement. And as you know, even if it's a half a second or a quarter of a second, that reinforcement isn't happening, right? And Dr. Susan Friedman told this great story about there was these farmers, I think they were growing like macadamia nuts or something, and the birds were just killing their crop. So they had these behaviorists come in with feeding machines, and they didn't get the timing right at first. And the birds were like, whatever, we're going for the macadamia nuts, right? Because your timing's off. And they fixed the timing literally by a quarter of a second. And then the birds were like, oh, the machines that you're using are more reinforcing. And they solved the problem. So again, when I see somebody doing leash reactivity work and, they're mitigating their distance and they're doing things kindly, but they're throwing the food and the dog's breaking its gaze, which is fine. I've done tons of stuff where the dog, because look, real world training can be messy. So if I'm like, oh shit, my duration is going to be really building up here, I'll do a food spill to break that, right? I'll do an antecedent intervention so the dog's head drops from the stimulus and then they lift it back up so I can get a little bit of time where the other dog or whatever it is, skateboard, isn't present, right? But I see a lot of trainers just like tossing food, and I'm like, yeah, your rate's slowing down, buddy. I appreciate that you're not using a prong collar, and that you're using food. But again, I just did a huge interview. It's going to be coming out as part of a series. And one of the things that I explained was, one of my idols and heroes for work ethic anyway is Kobe Bryant. And I watch film. I'm eating and I'm watching film and I'm rewinding and I'm going, was that 40 feet or 25? Like, how many feet was that? How much was the duration? Right? Like, I'm always watching game film, always, because I want to be great. And I also want to have my data, right? I want to know, like, okay, that dog I worked with 2 weeks ago was good at 40 feet, but at, 25, he wasn't. So, right. Yeah, that's just how I operate, and I don't, I don't know what other people do. They may have kids or a wife or a husband or a second job. I don't know. I got news for everybody. I ain't got kids. I ain't married. All I do is dogs from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And if I'm not doing dogs, I'm either eating, cleaning, or making music. So I'm immersed in it all day, every day. 365 days a year I work with dogs. Vacations and time off is for death. And while I'm here, I want to help as many people as I can. I mean, I don't know what your goal is, and I'll ask you in a little bit, but my goal is to help as many dogs and as many people as I can before I exit. And that's my goal. And it's not to be famous, but if somehow the right thing came along and I could get a massive platform, as long as all the paperwork worked out, because I've been in the entertainment business, so I know how that works. But then, yeah, okay, I would be famous for dogs to help them, but I'm certainly not doing this to fill a hole.
Yeah, I like what you said, and we had a little brief discussion, text back and forth about videoing work and things of that nature, and that's an area where I know that I'm lacking in, and I'm a big believer in, watching film and such. So let me ask you this, because the fact that you do it and you do it so intensely, watching, and I know the times that I have done it, it's like I'm my worst critic. Okay. You don't need to tell me what I did wrong. I'm going to look at that video and I'm going to pick it apart. Doing all the videos and watching yourself working with the pet guardians or working with their pet, what have you learned the most by watching the film?
That mechanics are everything. Reinforcement, whether it's creating distance, issuing food, using very simple verbal cues, prompts, right? And again, like, I'm a trained vocalist. I have super command of my voice and words and all that. Like, I've gotten out of fist fights in New York City because I could rap on the street and little kids would leave me alone. They're like, oh shit. Right. So like having efficiency is the thing that I've learned, is to be efficient. I already had situational awareness and like looking around, like I already had that from just life. Again, I think that there's a lot of skill transference that you can bring if you have certain skill sets, right? Like just being a performer and being comfortable in front of people, right? Like that helps massively when you're in a room with, 12 people, 6 puppies on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Like you can't just be like, we're here to train dogs. Like you got to be an entertainer to a certain extent. Like, you don't want to lose sight of the goal, which is to teach people. But, look, you don't have to be a behavior expert to tell when the person in front of you isn't confident and they're not sure and they're uncomfortable. And I'm none of those things. I'm the opposite of imposter syndrome, whatever that's called. I don't feel like I'm an imposter. I saw a post the other day and somebody was like, what about all the cases that, oh my God, it was like 9 paragraphs wallowing in like, are we I was like, Jesus Christ. Look, you do the best you can when you're with your client, right? You write a report or session notes, whatever it is, as backup. Me, myself, when someone books me, I tell them, you have me for life, meaning you can text me every single day until 8 p.m. Just keep it brief. Don't send me 90 texts in 4 minutes. But I'm here to help you, right? 365 days a year till 8 p.m. You can get a hold of me and I will get back to you within the hour. And, if I don't hear from you, I'm going to assume you're doing great. If I get a text or an email saying, hey, this is a problem, okay, great. Let's get to it. We can either book a session or we can do it remotely. If all you need is some coaching and did you watch this video I sent you? Watch it again, look at this part. So, again, going back to video, like if dog trainers make videos of themselves training, I'm talking about even if you make a video of you training a dog how to sit, right? Like someone might be like, why waste my time? There's 100 million. Yeah, but your clients don't have a video of you doing it. And they hire you and now you send them that video and now they're like, hey, that was my dog trainer. It helps them be more connected to the material versus watching a video of somebody they don't know, right? So what I have learned is be efficient, right? Which I already was aware of, but again, like everybody kind of comes into dogs the same way, unless their parents were dog trainers or whatever, right? Like we all get a dog and we either have an issue and we need to seek out help, or we become interested because we have a dog and we want to learn. But yeah, I mean, video don't lie unless it's edited for effect. And I only edit my dog training videos for continuity, or it's a video explaining something and the B-roll is going to help people stay engaged. But like if I do a video on leash reactivity, it's not cherry picked and edited. If the dog explodes, oh well, I'll explain what happened, right? And all of a sudden there was a skateboard and a rabbit and I had to move. Leave it, let's go, right? So, I think a lot of people going back to what we were saying before, like a lot of dog trainers, they're either camera shy, they don't like the way they look or their hair, whatever the hell their problem is with being on film, or they just don't want to film. They don't want their clients on film. In today's day and age, especially if you're a female going into people's homes, you should have it right in your documents. This session will be on film, and you should have a GoPro on your chest with extra batteries in your pocket, and it should be going as soon as you get to their door. And if they don't want to hire, you say, well, we live in a really crazy world, and I'm not going to put the video out on YouTube if you don't want me to. just store it on a hard drive. And I'll tell you, it doesn't happen often because people know that it's on film, but the few times it's happened where somebody's contacted, they said, well, you did this, and said, so hold on. It's on film. And as soon as you tell them it's on film, all their complaints go away.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because they're like, oh shit, that's right. This guy was at my house for 90 minutes with 2 GoPros going. Oh, I must have had a moment over my breakfast. And, because everybody thinks they're an expert at dogs, right? Until they get in a room with somebody who really knows what they're doing. And I'm sure you must have had a client like that. And you're like, well, actually, that's funny, like, on that show, The Office, where Oscar is known as Well Actually. Dog trainer's whole life is, well, actually, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens to each other and we agree or disagree, but that's just the way it goes with clients. A lot of times you just have to say, well, actually, that's not how that works. And hopefully that's a good thing for them. I mean, I know that when I tell people that their dog is innocent and they have no moral imperative to disobey you, they get real happy because they've been told the contrary,
Well, that brings me to a question that I wanted to bring up, and that is, when it comes to the clients, when it comes to pet parents, pet guardians, what, in your experience, in your opinion, what do most pet parents misunderstand about how dogs actually learn and how they process the world?
Wow, there's a lot of stuff that dog guardians or the average person is really lost about. Again, I had the advantage of coming into dogs going, I don't know anything about dogs. A dog for my girlfriend, I don't know. Right. So I was an open slate, right? Like I was an open book, right? So, more dog guardians should operate under that premise because they don't know anything about their car, right? Yeah, I don't know how the carburetor works. You don't try to explain the carburetor to the mechanic or say, well, my last car had a better car. You just bring it to the mechanic and hope they fix it. So if you are in the room with somebody who you've trusted enough to hire, you should at least, again, and hopefully people will hire dog trainers who aren't shocking and choking and blaming the dog. So, for sake of, this conversation, we're going to say they're in the room with somebody who's, doing things the correct way. They should listen. They should do the work. They should take the time and they should study what they need to study. And, I don't give big, long training plans. My training plans are in an email with video links and very short instructions and descriptions because everybody's attention span is compromised. Everybody's time is at a premium. And again, going back, we got to make things simple, right? I don't think that making things complicated or being long-winded is going to help the general public. That's why my book is 60 something pages. I tell people you can read it over breakfast and it's easy to reference. Like you can just go, oh, what did he say about house training? Boom. Right. Like, I mean, I again, like, do what you want. But, when somebody writes a dog training book that's this thick, I'm like, yeah, that's for dog trainers. That's not for the general public. Like that's, I mean, yeah, you might find a couple of people, but that's for other dog trainers and behavior geeks to read. That's not for mom and dad and their kids to learn. And if I'm going to, have a dog, a book on leash reactivity, that's pretty much done. I just haven't gone through the final stages of putting it out. But it's, I don't know, 80 pages, maybe 70, because it doesn't need to.
I appreciate that skill. I have a hard time condensing things. So that's
how to write a song. You'll figure out how to get your point across.
My father, who's not alive anymore, but early on as a young adult, he was a copywriter he had to write commercials, and he was like, the expert at taking something and just condensing it down to, its core information, which is quite a skill. In talking about what clients or what pet parents might misunderstand about how dogs learn, how they process the world, their thoughts and attitudes on dog training, what it is, what it actually isn't. If you look at, and we're going to be talking a little bit about your movie, your documentary, but how does, or what misunderstandings do you think pet guardians, pet parents have that maybe push them towards harsher tools and methods?
Well, people are good sales people, right? Like trainers, you know, they just sell it. And again, if you resonate with a certain thing, right? Because again, and again, I have to go back, and I really appreciate your breadth of education. It's nice to see. You know, you have a master's in psychology, so you know, think about the psychology of, well, your dog is jumping on people and mouthing them. And in order for you to get control of this, you need to be the master and the dog, right? All of that, it makes sense, right?
Sure.
Like even to us, we know that's total BS, but psychologically, right? It makes sense, right? You can see how people would make those connections, right? So a lot of times, again, good people get bad information because I think that a lot of these pain trainers don't really know that much about dog behavior. They're doing it because they know they can make $100 an hour or whatever it is they're charging, right? They can make money. It's better than a day job, right? And, you know, they just cross their fingers and like, oh, if I choke him enough, he'll stop jumping. If I shock him enough, he'll stop barking, because that's what they're doing. Because we both have had clients who hired a pain trainer, dogs discombobulated, and I don't know about you, but I ask, so why didn't you call the other trainer for help? Oh, they wouldn't return my call. Yeah, because they know they messed up. They know deep down inside in their quietest moment when they're going to bed, they're like, shit, I ruined that dog yesterday. I shocked him too much. The only way you know if the dog's going to have a response to being shocked or choked is to do it, right? And, you know, that's why I go hard in the paint every day to advocate for fear and pain not to be included in people's dog training practices. And I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure I was one of, if not the first person who just always used the terminology fear and pain. Fear and pain, not making euphemisms, but calling it what it is. These people are using fear and pain to get the dog to stop doing stuff. And, you know, that's really where dog guardians are messing up, is they're hiring trainers who are going to come in and choke them and shock them and blame them. And, you know, I've sat in a room with thousands of people, and I can't tell you, countless people are like, wow, we've had dogs for like 15 years and no other dog trainer has ever told us this. And there have even been clients who've worked with positive trainers in my area that I know and I like. And I'm like, they didn't tell you about safe, unsafe, neutral? They didn't tell you about how consequence works and flow charts and sequences and how dogs figure out sequences. And if they lead to reinforcement, then that's going to increase the behavior. And if it leads to no or lack of reinforcement, it decreases behavior. No, they never explained that. And I didn't just say anything like from another planet. It's basic English. Again, a kid can figure it out if you're paying attention. So, you know, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, look, man, all I know is I know that when I get a client, I give them 1,000% and I make it as simple as possible. And I always go with the safe. I tell people every business has a religion, and my religion is safety, right? So I'm, you know, guilty of, yep, don't go to dog parks, don't meet unknown dogs, right? You have two dogs and they're fighting over food. You got to get a gate. Like, I just tell people plain English, like, if you don't do it, okay. But if you text me 3 weeks from now and go, we went to a dog park, I told you, don't go to dog parks. I told you, don't meet unknown dogs. You know, I'm not talking about your neighbor who's got a 5-year-old lab who's happier than shit on a... Okay, it could go bad, but you know where the guy lives and you know his dog. It's not some rando that you just decided to meet somewhere and the dog's got into a fight and now the guy disappears into the night and you don't know what's going on with his dog or him. There's no recourse. So I am safe to a fault. And I just try to get people to always realize, like, if you're not sure, do the safest thing. And the safest thing is usually don't do it, stay away from it, create some distance, and just text me and ask me, hey, I was going to do this. What do you think? And 99.9% of the time, I'm going to tell you, yeah, you made the right choice. Because if you make the unsafe choice, you might not be able to get it fixed. You might, I don't know, but now you're working uphill, right? I don't want to work uphill.
So you were talking about, fear and pain and talking to clients. How do you explain behavior change versus behavior suppression and language for them that they understand?
Well, one of the things I do, especially in puppy kindergarten orientation, when there's no dogs in the room and it's just the pet parents, is I just go like that. I'm barely touching my neck. I'm barely touching my neck. You hear how my voice changes? So now imagine a prong collar jabbing into your dog's esophagus and its windpipe and its trachea. And they can't tell you, hey, I got a bruised trachea. By the time you find out, it's too late, right? Or, I might be talking calmly and I'm explaining fear and pain and associative learning. And I go, and the whole room goes, Jesus Christ. And I'm like, yeah, see, that's how your dog's going to feel if you yell at it. Right? See how scared you guys were? How just out of the blue, I completely used that really loud sound and everybody got scared. Yeah. So that's how your dog is going through life. And then I give them the doorbell example, right? So the doorbell rings and in one house, they yell at the dog. Shut up, Jesus. And the dog goes, oh, I got it right. I guess I should be scared. Everybody's mad. Okay. Nope. You just lied to your dog. Because in the other house, they go, oh, it's okay, good boy. It's all right. Hey, we'll be right there. Hold on. Who's a good boy? You like people? Yeah, it's a good boy. Come here for a second. Okay, I'm going to put you behind the gate. All right, hold on a second. And then I go answer the door. Now, the dog in the happy house is still going to bark probably when the doorbell rings, but the predictive value of doorbell ringing, people coming in is not going to have this baggage. It's not going to have a generalized fear. And as we know, dogs generalize fear better than anything. So what do you want to create? Do you want your dog to be afraid of doorbells or do you want the dog to just be kind of startled? And look, you don't have to be a nervous person on medication to go, oh, the doorbell rang, right? It's just a natural response when there's a sudden sound that you're engaged over here and, oh, there's a doorbell, right? So I just explain things to people in plain English. I give the example, you're mugged on the corner of Main Street and State Street on a Tuesday on your way home from work at 5 o'clock. Guarantee every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, then you walk by that corner, you're going to have an associative value to that corner that you got mugged. And you're going to start to feel, even before you get to the corner, you're going to be nervous, right? Most people. I mean, some of us will be like, you ain't mugging me, bro. Anyway, I'm an outlier, trust me. But yeah, like that's just how it goes, right? Like all of us are going to assign an associative value to a sequence or a stimulus. And, context for humans is easily derived. Like, okay, I can figure this out. We got big brains. Dogs, safe, unsafe, neutral. And I explain to people that unless your dog has had conscious contact with like a really traumatic or aversive event, like they've been hit, so now they're afraid of hands, if your dog has a fear of something, it's not true. The dog needs to be given a new narrative. What are you afraid of doorbells for, buddy? It's like if you ever, I'm sure you have, like you're out with a dog and you're walking them and they see a statue and they're all like, right? And you let them walk up to the statue and you give them treats and you're like, yeah, good boy. Next day you walk by the statue, they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Because they habituate quick because it's a static stimulus, right? You repaired it. It was a lie. The dog, they don't need to be afraid. They thought it was scary, but it really wasn't. Now, of course, you can't do that with everything, right? But I've done it with motorcycles, skateboards, trucks, running kids, where the dog was initially scared and I just counter conditioned them to realize the new predictive value. Because as long as they're not receiving fear and pain from that stimulus or that chain of events, and they're not already predisposed in whatever way to be fearful, right? Like, I mean, if, and you know this very well, you get your guard dog breeds. And I always hope when I get a German Shepherd, they act like a lab every time. Because if they're acting like a German Shepherd, I'm like, well, okay, yeah, he's definitely a German Shepherd. He's a little suspicious and a little barky, maybe a little hair trigger here. But I always hope that the German Shepherd's genetics are busted and it's like a lab, because you still get all the German Shepherd scariness, right? You just have it in the lab brain. hopefully. Yeah.
I want to move into and talk about your documentary,
Okay.
The Price of Pain. Um, what was the moment, if there was one, there might have been several moments, but what was the moment that you knew you had to make this documentary?
Oh, that's easy. So a former assistant of mine, Laura Giuliano, who worked with me at Urban Dogs for about 4 years, she moved on and started her own business. And there is a bill, SB 3814, that was brought to the New Jersey legislature to remove harmful dog training methods for pet dog trainers. Military and police were left out, and electronic fencing, which is another hill to deal with, right? But for pet dog trainers, this bill would make it illegal for dog trainers to use shock collars and prong collars. I was in many cases against the regulation of pet dog training because it's just the language of the bills that I read in the past were not very good. And you could tell it was just a money grab by the state, right? They're just like, oh, there's 500 dog trainers. Let's charge them $500 a year to be dog trainers or whatever. And again, when you go to regulate dog training, all the little whisperers are going to be there. And that's what happened when this bill got brought before the committee, right? 30 some odd pain trainers showed up. As a matter of fact, I did a video because I took the audio from the meeting and I broke it all down. And it's, I'm like, and you should hear the excuses these people make. And now that Paw Safe and Radio Systems had a civil suit for false advertising, pain trainers been pretty quiet because even though the company didn't admit any wrongdoing, they still shelled out 1.9 mil, right? So
I'm curious to find out what they actually pay, because the 1.9 million is if the people submit a claim. And I was reading somewhere they get like what, $140 or something.
Right. And that's not the point. The point
No, I get it. Right. I get it. I'm just saying, I would like to know down the road. I don't know how much they end up paying, but yeah, the biggest thing is that
put it this way, it's in the press and the civil suit didn't go in their favor. Yeah. And it's about false advertising.
Yeah.
Right? So that's, again, these are dominoes, right? And so one domino has fallen. So when I was aware of this bill and I knew the person who wrote it, and I was like, how can I help? What can I do? Oh, what do? I make content. I make films. So in April of, was it this year? Yeah, it was this year. No, it was last year. I don't know. It was pretty quick. Like I just put out a call on Facebook, said, this is what I want to do. And I just started doing interviews with people over Zoom, recording them, and then just started putting together the film. It was quick. I think I did all the interviews and had the film out within 3 months or less. And that's the beautiful thing about today's world is that, you have this technology and you can interview people quickly and record it. So, that was the moment I was like, okay, I need to do this. Because I know that there's a lot of stories out there of people who have hired pain trainers. And there's a lot of stories of dog trainers who've had to take on cases where they were just like shaking their head. Like if this dog just hadn't been shocked for a year, none of this would be part of the problem, right? The dog's now biting people and they're petrified. Yeah, because they got shocked for a year, right? So I just wanted those stories and then I sent the film to all the people in the New Jersey legislature who are making, decisions on this bill. It's up in the air. I don't know. But again, Massachusetts has a similar bill that looks to be doing well. I don't know. I don't live in Massachusetts, but so there's 2 states, and, anybody who watches this that is trying to get that type of legislation, I encourage them to contact me or send their legislatures a link to the documentary.
In doing your documentary, what were you hearing? What were you seeing that people were never warned about?
Well, the professionals in the film were well aware of everything. The dog guardians, there's one young lady in the film who starts crying because, she's explaining how these pain trainers are like berating her and telling her she's too soft. And
Yeah, I was watching that.
man, if I was standing in a room with somebody, I'd be like, bro, you better straighten your shit right out because me and you are about to have a serious conversation man to man. Don't start talking to my wife like that, bro. I'll smack the shit out of you. You want to see somebody get aggressive? Change your tone, son. Yeah, because I don't play that shit. Because at a certain point, it's not about dog training. It's about treating people with respect. And if you're telling somebody who's uncomfortable about something you're going to do with their dog that they have a problem, you're the problem, right? So if somebody says to me, oh, I don't feel comfortable, walking my dog on this busy street. I'm like, great. You have 3 other streets over here we can walk on. I don't say, oh, don't be a baby. Just walk the dog on the busy street. I'm like, all right, it's okay. We don't have to do it. Like I'm always looking to reduce people's stress, like there's some things you kind of have to do, right? Like, you have to bring your dog to the vet. You have to get your dog out. But I don't ever belittle people if they have a concern. If it's a completely made up concern that doesn't, it's just them being, I'll just say, nah, trust me, watch. Like a lot of times in dog play, clients will be like, oh my God, he's growling. I'm like, yeah, but look at all the other stuff that's going on, right? Right. Like, so I explain to people like, yeah, this is normal. I understand that you might feel uncomfortable, but this is actually good dog play. This is good. We're not worried about this. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people outside of dog training aren't aware of that coercion, those tactics. Right. And this woman didn't want the dog to be on a shock collar. She was worried about it and they did it anyway. And the dog, at the time of the interview, the dog was still, she's working with a legit trainer and she's doing everything to repair the dog. If I remember, it was a poodle mix. So we're already dealing with poodles, right? They were originally created to be guard dogs. So they come with a little bit more sometimes, not always. I mean, genetics isn't a crapshoot, but if you bring me a poodle who's a little scared, I'm not surprised. I'm like, okay, yeah, guard dog breed. And people are always like, really? I was like, yeah, they used to be big. They shrunk them down over time. They're still big, but yeah, because everybody thinks poodles are little, but actually they created the big one first.
Right.
And then shrunk them down. So yeah, I think that's, something that a lot of dog guardians, lay people, whatever, and it's because you're not selling cars. And even then, like you shouldn't, if a 16-year-old kid comes into the dealership and he just got his license, I'm not selling him a Harley Davidson. Nope. I don't even care if your parents are in the room. No, you're 16. You just got your license. I'm not selling you a motorcycle. I don't care. If one of the other salespeople want to do it, fine. But I'm not going to sell you a motorcycle. You're 16. You're going to kill yourself. You don't even know how to drive a car yet. You just got your license 2 weeks ago. You want a motorcycle? What are you, nuts? No, here, get this car over here for $4,000. It's nice and big. You crash into something, you probably live. Work your way up, kid. Right? I mean, I don't know. That's just me, but I don't think people are aware of that, the coercion, right, and the sales tactics, right? Because a lot of these pain trainers, it's like, well, it's $4,000 for 4 months of training, and I'm going to come every week. You know what I tell people when they contact me and they tell me? And somebody once did. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. She literally lives 10 minutes from me. So, well, I think I'm going to send my dog to upstate New York, $3,000 for 3 weeks. I said, don't do that. I said, those people are notorious for using shock and choke and doing really bad things to dogs. I said, and even if they are not that, and it's somebody like me, like I have 2 dogs boarding with me right now, right? Like they're not going to get hurt. I said, you need the skills. Your dog needs to work with you, right? So I'll train your dog at the session. I'll show you my mechanics. I'll help you understand how to do it. But ultimately, you got to train your dog, not somebody in upstate New York, right? And again, I'm not talking about like, somebody runs a boarding business that isn't even a trainer. They just watch dogs for people, like, these board and train places where you send your dog away. And she did. And I was only going to charge her my standard fee, which is $300 for an initial session for a couple hours, and you get support for life. But you're going to go spend $3,000 and send your dog away, and you think they're going to come back fixed, like you're sending away your classic car to get redone, right? Like it's a biological creature. It's not a car. It's not an appliance. So, that's why I made it, just to bring more light to the plight of the dog training industry and how there's charlatans, straight up charlatans out here. I mean, look, I may have personal issues or disagreements with other people in the force-free positive community, and that's fine. But I'm just glad they're not shocking and choking dogs and giving people information that's faulty.
So in your experience, doing the documentary and with all the dogs and clients that you've worked with, what have you found to be more common with the, prong collars and e-collars? Is it more, have you seen more physical injury or more behavioral fallout?
Probably more behavioral fallout, but there've been my fair share of clients whose dogs have had neck injuries. And I have to remind people, dogs are real sensitive. I know they're resilient creatures, but they're very sensitive both behaviorally and physically. But definitely more behavioral fallout, lots of learned helplessness, lots of reactivity. There's a series of videos on my YouTube channel with a dog named Brandy. And I started working with Brandy and her guardian Nancy, I think in like '08. And, she shocked her dog and she choked her dog and she knew she messed up. And a lot of times that's what happens. Like, I also remind people, like, yeah, you can find a dog who's got a really quick punishment callus, right? Like, you can find a dog, you can find them. I'm not saying that every dog's undone, but if you look at it, there's a little extra lip lick and there's some yawns and stress shakes. And okay, the dog's not undone. It doesn't need meds, but you can tell the dog is like stressed, right? Okay, but those are cherry picked dogs. And if even one dog can be harmed irreparably by shocking and choking, then no dog should be wearing those devices, right? It's why we don't just be like, yeah, just go do some fentanyl. No, if you do fentanyl, you need to be under the care of a doctor. It needs to be administered by a professional right? So, I see a lot of behavior stuff, a lot of aggression, a lot of dogs who are super untrusting. And that's just sad, man. It's just like super sad because, as I'm sure you've had these cases. Some of those dogs aren't coming back. They're done. They do not trust, right? I sat in the room with a 26-year-old kid years ago, him and his girlfriend. They had a pity. And they hired a trainer. And the trainer told them, every time your dog barks at the front door, you shock him. The dog became so unsound that the only two people on the planet the dog could trust were the kid and his girlfriend. I had to have the dog on the other side of my training facility behind a fence. And the dog, for pretty much the entire time in the room with me, was just lunging and barking at me and carrying on and could not settle. And the kid, covered in tattoos, was bawling his eyes out when I told him, I was like, look, man, you could hire me every single day for the rest of your life. I don't know if the dog's going to come up. I don't know, bro. And then I said, anybody who tells you they can fix this dog in 2 weeks, just give me the money and give me the dog. They are lying to you. What are they going to do? Shock him more? He's already been shocked enough, bro. And it ain't working. Look at him. I said, all I've done is say, hi, good boy, and throw your dog food for the last 45 minutes. And he's still like, I'm going to kill you, bro. He had landed a couple bites, people coming in the house, friends, whatever. And I said, shocking the dog didn't help him. So we can't do that anymore. And we should have never done it in the first place. And I was like, look, I'll work with you, but the only guarantee I make is I show up on time, I'm sober, and I will not cause your dog fear and pain, right? I'll give you 100%. But anybody who guarantees you they can fix this is lying to you. And you've already been lied to once. So, and he ended up euthanizing his dog and his heart is broken. But I bet you'll never use a shock collar on a dog again. And I bet you'll tell all his friends and family don't do that. So, if there is a silver lining, it's just one more person who made a really bad choice and now they've learned their lesson the hard way.
So that's a good example of, behavioral fallout. What do you think in terms of, what behavior fallout is the most dangerous long term?
Oh, a dog that has a bite history, of course, right? I mean, I use the Dunbar bite scale. So, I'm sure you're aware of that. And if somebody calls me, it's just like, conversation you and I were having and, a bunch of other people were having about fear and so forth and aggression and all that. If somebody calls me and they say that their dog um, killed their cat and they say, my dog's aggressive, I'm like, no, your dog's not aggressive. But they were friends. Yeah. And now they're not. He's a dog. It's a predator, right? Sad, but no. Oh, geez, your dog, you got kids in the house. No, like years of data, no problem with people, daycare, whatever, like dog friends, right? But he killed the cat one day. But they're animals, bro. There's no morality here. They're animals. I don't know what happened, but your dog's not aggressive. He killed a predator. I feel bad for you. I really do. That sucks. Like, I don't have cats. I don't want them to live in fear, though. I don't want them to be abused, right? So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to talk about what's the worst thing that can happen is your dog becomes generally afraid of people, dogs, whatever, and now their response is to bite. And, I mean, if they're landing, level 3, 4, 5, 6, right? If there's like really fuzzy triggers or no trick, because that's what happens, right? Like I've done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people about fight dogs, and those fight dogs don't have protracted warning signs because they learn that when they're in the 16 by 16 box, if they have a protracted warning sign, it gives them away. That's why they bite out of nowhere. So again, folks like us who've got a lot of years with eyes on dogs, we can pick up super subtle things. Like I can't tell you how many times I'm like, yeah, I see like the lip lift and the lick, and I'm like, yeah, this dog's got stress. And everybody in the room's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, yeah, there's excess lip licking, and the lips getting lifted, and like it's happening quick. So yeah, that's the worst thing that can happen because then the dog's life is at risk and people's safety is at risk. And what I tell people is if your dog becomes aggressive, bona fide, they are afraid and they are biting, their life is this big. They're not going for walks very far for very long. They're not going anywhere with you into a store, or your dog's life's going to be this big because they might bite somebody and you're going to get sued and your dog's going to get euthanized. So don't do things that compromise your dog's behavior. There's always a creative, safe, humane way to approach behavior change. You know this, I know this, our colleagues know this. We need to get the general public. And again, that's why I proselytize, make content. I don't care what it is, right? Like, look, man, at the end of the day, us dog trainers who know right from wrong and have an education and an understanding of all the things you and I understand, right? If we all just made a concerted effort to go, you know what? That trainer over there, I may not agree with what's going on, but I know that person doesn't shock, choke, blame, and they use science and they're giving people good information. I'm not going to bust their chops, right? I'm not going to drag them. I'm not going to start an argument. I'm going to be respectful because I look at it like this. If you are on the right side, the force-free side, the humane side, the scientific side, then I consider you a teammate, right? And I'm going to do what I can to help you. And I'm not going to just unnecessarily mess with you because I'm on social media and I'm safe behind a screen. Like, I think that that's one of the things that has our culture divided, and I don't appreciate it. And I mean, like, look, I'm not worried about making friends. I'm not in this fucking business to like be your buddy. Like, it's great if we can be. I have no problem. Like, if we want, I'm friends with trainers, but like my job is to help the general public and to make sure that they get good information. And again, if I see a trainer and they're doing something and I'm like, yeah, well, their mechanics, this, that, maybe I might, this, that. I'm not going to like start a conversation. I don't care. I know you're not hurting dogs, right? Plenty of trainers in the past have contacted me and asked me for help. I just had a couple of trainers in the past month, hey, can I talk to you? I got a couple cases. I'm like, yeah, sure, man. They wanted to pay me. I'm like, save your money, man. You're a teammate. I'm not going to charge you. What's going on? Let's just hash it out. Hopefully I can help, right? There needs to be more solidarity because we've already got the balance trainers and the pain trainers against us. And we've got their segment of society who resign with that against us, right? Like I'm sure you know, run into people who are like, you know, I don't know, they give you these stupid things like, you know, whatever, like the dog is, you got to know who its master is. I'm like, dude, I got thumbs and a big prefrontal cortex. My dog ain't doing shit without my help. The only thing dogs do without humans' help is breathe, bark, and sleep. That's it. And when it comes to sleeping, they sleep where you ask them or tell them to sleep, right? So everything, the entire economy for the dog, we control. What are they running? They're not doing anything. They get out of the house, it's my fault. Right?
Yeah, I always tell people, you know, especially the ones that say, well, I was told I've got to be alpha. I'm like, you're God. What does your dog do without you? How does your dog function? You know, you're
can just breathe,
you're more
bark.
than alpha. Trust me, you're God.
Right. Yeah. Breathe, bark, and sleep, and go to the bathroom, right? And they won't go to the bathroom if you don't feed them, right? So,
there you go.
like at the end of the day, yeah. And I think that more educators in our business need to explain it in plain English like that, right? And I think one of the problems with our culture of the positive reinforcement training, whatever you want to call us, force free, all that, is that they make things too complicated. They're too wordy. Just tell people straight up. They will appreciate your honesty and your forthright explanation, right? It's kind of like when you're a musician, you learn all these scales and music theory and harmony. You learn all this stuff, then you just go play. When you're on stage, you're not thinking, oh, gee, now I'm going to go to the Phrygian mode. You just do it. And the same thing is with dog training, right? Now, if I'm out with the dog on leash, I might be thinking, yeah, I need more distance. And I'm real good at adding things in 10 feet increments. So I might be like, yeah, I need 30 feet. I know that every street, give or take, is roughly 40 feet in width. So I already know I've got an environmental marker of 40 feet. So if I'm across the street, I got 40 feet. How's the dog doing at 40 feet? Do I need 60? I'm going to find out, right? So, you know, I do a lot of math in my head when I'm training. You know, I'm real good at criteria shifts. Oh, the touch didn't work. Let me use leave it, right? Well, let me use a different, like I should go right through prompts, right? I can just go right through them, right? Oh, that one worked, right? But a lot of dog trainers, even though they're great at what they do, and even though they're educated and they don't hurt dogs, you know, they might be kind of slow on certain things, and that's fine. Everybody's got their own skill sets. But again, I don't drag other positive trainers. I do my best to always be respectful and not be flippant. And, you know, I save that for people who I know real well in the real world. And even then, depending on the subject, right? Because it doesn't help anybody, right? And that should be our collective goal, is to help each other and to help the general public, because there's already so much going against us and the general public. There's a lot. I mean, look, the most popular dog training TV show ever in the history of dog training TV shows was all about fear and pain and nonsense and not scientific and not helpful. It hurt. It hurt the whole culture, right? And believe me, I know, because when he got sued by Floaty Suarez back in, I think it was 07. Yeah, because I was at the Academy for Dog Trainers. Me and my ex-wife, who's also a trainer, we got brought in to be experts on that case. So we got all the files, the pictures.
Remind me of that case. Was that somebody's dog got hurt on a treadmill, or?
Yep, bingo. Yep, Floaty Suarez. Dog's name was Gator. And they tied him to a treadmill and left him there. And he was so exhausted, he fell and he got all cut up. And I don't know, they're probably somewhere on a hard drive, but I had those pictures. I had all the testimony. And I'll never forget, I was on a lunch break at the Academy for Dog Trainers, and I was on the phone with Floaty Suarez himself, begging him not to settle out of court. I'm like, dude, you have to sue this guy. You have to follow through. But Hollywood takes care of Hollywood. And when you're $100 million TV personality, you're going to figure out it's like anything else, right? When you get to that level with that money, whether you're an actor, musician, politician, you're going to find a way to wiggle out of it,
Yep.
right? Especially if the other person that you have a problem with is in your same industry. And that's just the politics of the entertainment business. But so yeah, we have a lot working against us. I mean, I'm optimistic. I think things are better now than they've ever been because of social media and because people do podcasts like this, and information can get distributed. But look, you take cases. I'm sure you have no shortage of people going, my dog was on a prong collar and now he's really reactive, and you're like, oh, here we go again. All right, could have been avoided. Could have been avoided.
There's a lot of people that, are going to watch this that are pet guardians and not necessarily trainers. And I was going to ask you a question about, in the documentary, you highlight dogs becoming fearful of beeps, remotes, everyday sounds.
Yeah, that case was.
I want you to
scary.
talk about what actually went on there, kind of run us through that. And that gets into how dogs quickly create associations. All right. And then, because, one of the saddest things for me is when e-collar trainers, pain trainers, whatever you want to call them, prong collar trainers, balance trainers, whatever, they get a dog that is reactive and aggressive, and then that's their first go-to. And what a lot of people don't know and a lot of people don't understand is the chain of events when it comes to classical conditioning, how those tools, those methods, those approaches actually exacerbate and make the reactivity and the aggression worse by pairing that aversive. But can we start with maybe just share that story about the beeps and that, and then we'll kind of segue into.
Yeah, the person in the film, she has two dogs, and it was actually electronic fencing. It was a containment system, and they, as she says in the film, they literally, like, the dogs were petrified from the very first time they even got the beep. And they came back a week later or whatever it was, and they literally dragged her dogs out to the front yard and shocked them. Like, are you kidding me? A lot of these people who work for electronic fencing companies, I tell clients or just general public, if we're talking about, hey, should I get an electronic fence? I'm like, no. Why? So I start explaining. I said, a lot of these people who work for these companies were selling washing machines last month. They don't know anything about dog behavior, let alone dogs. They're selling something. They don't care about your dog. So what happened with this particular person is that their dog had generalized beeps and clicks to being shocked. And it was the server in their basement. It was the microwave. It was anything in their house that had a click or a beep. I had a guy years ago contact me, and he's like, my dog won't go in. He won't leave my house. And I said, let me guess, you have an electronic containment system? He goes, yeah, how'd you know? I go, well, I do this a little bit, buddy. It's only a couple of reasons why your dog's petrified to leave your house. You're not kicking him at the door, right? Nope. Okay. Well, yeah, he's back chaining, right? Goes back to you were mugged on Main Street at 5:00 on Tuesday. Every day you walk by on Main Street at 5:00 on Tuesday, you're going to start feeling scared before you get there, right? We all have those events we back chain, right? So, I would just tell, if you're watching this and you are a dog guardian and you shock your dog, or you give the beep or the vibration and the vibration might be enough for some dogs to be undone. Years ago, my last dog I had, Silas, we're just chilling, watching TV. He's got his head on my chest, and my phone was here, and my phone vibrated, and he went. I was like, oh, buddy, oh, it's okay, right? And it wasn't even near him. It was my phone vibrating. Dogs, as resilient as they are, and everybody loves to talk about breeds and how tough they are. Okay, they are very sensitive creatures. They're incredibly attuned to their environment to survive. right? My joke is they don't bungee jump. They get to the end and they're like, visual cliff response. Okay, maybe I'll just not, unless they're starving to death and they chase the rabbit over the cliff, because then you're talking about motivation and that's survival. Like, yeah, I'll risk death because I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in 4 weeks or whatever it is, right? But if the dog's well fed and they're chasing that rabbit and they get to that cliff, unless they mess up, they're like, oh, okay, right? Because dogs want to survive. It's in their cellular DNA to live another day, procreate, have puppies, move on the line, right? That's so they're looking to avoid things that cause them fear and pain. They're not looking to enter into it. And again, like that's where people say, what about pit bulls? It's funny when you mention pit bulls, everybody in the room becomes a geneticist.
Yeah.
You mention poodles, nobody talks about genetics. Why not? Right. So anyway, we could digress about genetics all day, and I'm sure you could help me with a lot of that stuff. But yeah, that's what I want people to come away with. Dogs generalize fear better than anything. And if they generalize fear, then it's possible they could become aggressive. And now you've got a real problem, right? And even if they don't become aggressive, now you get a dog who's shut down, learned helplessness. They're not offering you anything. So I don't think that the app, like one of the things I always say in puppy kindergarten orientation, when I'm talking about this stuff, I go, nobody gets a dog and goes, oh, I can't wait to yell at him. But a lot of people do, right? Nobody gets a dog and goes, oh, I can't wait to shock the shit out of this dog. But a lot of people do, because good people get bad information. Cultural influence seeps into people. They don't develop critical thinking. What really saved me as a young dog guardian was I said to my ex, I was like, look, this is pretty much going to be your dog, though that changed relatively quick. Fell in love with the dog. But I said, look, I want to have a hey dude relationship with this dog. I don't want it to be a lot of stress and strife. I want it to be real, and again, total naive person, right? Like, right. But now that I know all that I know, my relationship with dogs is, hey, dude, come here, bup, 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 leave it, right? Like it, right? And I tell men especially, think like a coach, and you're coaching 7-year-olds, and you don't know if they're going to the show. They're not 18 with a scholarship on the line. That's not what you're doing. It's the mindset is, come on, guys, one more lap. Daddy needs a beer. Oh, good job, buddy. Keep that for your dog, right? Even women too, I remind them, you can peel back. You don't have to be so intense. But, for men especially, I'm like, you're coaching Little League, man. And we don't know if they're all little Michael Jordans. We have no idea. We just need them to get through the practice and have a good time, right? Because you got to pull people back, right? I just had a client the other day, and I was talking to you about this client earlier about how the dog was in the shelter and was on a slip lead. And as we were leaving the session, we're at the door to my facility. And again, I have this on film, and I think I'm going to put it out because it's a great example. And I always teach people in the moment. And I explain to people, like, if I teach you in the moment, you get it. If I explain it to you later, you might get it, but in the moment. And you could tell it with just muscle memory. We got the dog to the door, and I said, wait. And the guy went like this, and he pulled up on the dog's harness. And I grabbed the leash, and I said, remember, your dog has had over half of his life being jerked by a leash. And one of the reasons why you're here is your dog redirects on the leash. Now, nobody's going to arrest you for animal abuse for doing that. But I'm telling you, you jerking him like that to get him to sit, he's stressed. And that's why he's biting the leash out on the walk, because he's like, oh, this thing on my back, right? And he got it. The dude got it. And he was like, oh, man. I go, oh, I get it, man. You're learning, you're changing. You got to change your behavior too. But I'm telling you, don't do that. It's stressing your dog out. And it's the reason why he's biting the leash on the walk, right? So, and I don't know if another dog trainer would have said that. They might have been like, oh, I don't want to offend my client. I ain't worried about offending you. I'm worried about hoping. I'm worried about you getting the information and hoping on your ride home, you look at your wife or your husband or whoever, your kids, and you go, hey, we got to switch shit up for this dog because we love him. We just spent, this money with this guy, and he didn't have a problem with the dog. Him and the dog got along great, and he knew him for 90 minutes. We've known this dog for 2 years, and we got all these challenges. We need to start doing stuff the way this guy's doing it. We need to watch it. And that's what I hope happens on the car ride home is they go, we need to change our behavior and we need to do it today. Today, when we get out of this car, we're a different family with this dog. That's what I hope. And again, it may happen, it may not. You know, I've had people text me 3 days after a session and go, my whole life has changed. This dog is a different dog. I've had people text me 3 weeks later and go, I'm still messing up. Okay. Well, as long as you're not causing your dog fear and pain, you're not doing anything wrong. As long as you're not being negligent, you're not doing anything wrong. I say wrong is causing your dog fear and pain and being negligent and irresponsible, letting your dog out of the house. Oh, he's okay on the front lawn. No, he's not. Sorry, he can run, right? So as long as you're being safe and you're not causing your dog fear and pain, I said it's just a matter of efficiency and changing your behavior to become more efficient, right? I always remind people, if you want your dog to respond quick, train quick, unless you have to train slow, right? Because I saw you responded to somebody on a list, and it was a great response. They were asking you about the process and it going slow, and I forget what you said, but the synopsis of your answer was, you know, you go at the speed you need to so the dog feels good about what's happening, right? You don't want to speed through things because it might not work. Sometimes you have to go slow, right? Sometimes you have to go quick. Right? Like if you got a little puppy and they're distracted, it's better to go, dog name, leave it, right? And get that discretionary effort built in with prompts and letting your dog know, look, yeah, come here, buddy, right? And sometimes you got to go super slow. There's times that I sit in a dog training session and I literally don't move and I talk like this for 90 minutes because the dog is petrified. And I know if I talk like this and I talk like I normally talk, the dog's going to go, yeah. Like, oh, okay, buddy, good boy. Yeah, it's okay. And I never look at the dog, right? And I start conditioning eye contact like super fast, like millisecond, boom, right? Those of us who have been doing this long enough and know our stuff, you know that you got to be flexible. That's one of the things Dr. Friedman really stressed in her course is you got to be flexible. You can't be rigid. Right.
I want to ask you about Dr. Friedman, and you're very familiar with her work. I am not.
I'm familiar with her course.
Okay, I know you took her course. Yeah. I know.
Okay.
Not enough to comment.
Sure.
Appropriately on her, but there's two things that I want to ask you about because the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers have used her model of basically Lima. And I've recently, in talking about force-free training and having discussions online with other balance trainers, they've brought up Friedman a lot. And
right.
The thing that they're and I don't know if this is true or not, but I think what they're driving at is they're trying to imply Friedman says aversives are okay.
Yeah, but aversives aren't fear and pain, right? So I'll disappoint dogs all day long, right? Disappointment, fine, right? So in other words, I need a dog to wait at doors. They get to the door, I say, wait, I crack the door 1/4 inch. The dog moves, I shut the door. Yeah, I just disappointed you. I didn't cause you fear and pain. Right. And that's why the whole Lima thing is a scam, right? Because it's just like you have to be specific. That's why I don't use aversive. I use fear and pain as a description of what not to do. Right. If I time the dog out, it's an aversive, but it's not causing the dog fear and pain. Right. So if you get a parking ticket, it's aversive. If they popped your tires and smashed your window for parking there, that's fear and pain. So, Dr. Friedman does not, at least the last time I checked, and I took her course, in 2013? She seems like a very humane, kind person. I don't think she's advocating for people to use shock collars and prong collars. She does say that aversives are part of life, and they are. But, it's aversive to get an extra, $30 on your electric bill for some reason. It doesn't mean you have fear and pain. It's just, it sucks, right? So again, I will bum a dog out. I will disappoint you. Sorry, buddy, you can't jump on the table. I'm timing you out behind the gate, right? And my explanation of that to clients is think like a referee. Referees don't get mad. They're just like, yep, time out. Let's go, buddy. Too bad. You can be matter of fact. I was just with a client the other day, and the dog was a little reluctant, and we needed to get them into the car. And I said, well, we're going to be humanely assertive. We're not going to hurt or scare the dog, but we got to make this happen. We're not standing in the parking lot for 70 minutes to counter condition the dog to jump in the car. It's not why we're here. Dog has no bite history. I spent 90 minutes with this dog. We're buddies. Okay, you ready, bud? Okay, up, boom, in, treat, leash him to the seat, boom, done. And the client was like, oh, humanely assertive. I like that. I'm like, yeah, just as long as you're not sensitizing, you're not, trying to have your dog do something that they're petrified of. The dog needs to get in the car. And I'm going to tell you, it's okay to just say, all right, buddy, just like you would a little kid. Right? You got a little 4-year-old kid who's got a little stress about something, and the end result isn't going to be fearful or painful, and you're going to give the kid his toy when he gets in the car, or the iPad, right? Whatever it is, like you're going to pad it. Yes, aversives are part of life. Fear and pain, they're part of life, but you don't want to instigate it. You don't want to, right? Like, unless you're an MMA fighter. Right?
But let me ask you this now. So for many years, I used e-collars, prong collars, used e-collars more than prong collars.
When did you stop doing that?
About 6 years ago.
So like 2019, 2020?
Yeah. And, I always back then prided myself in, you know what? Yeah, it's a mild discomfort, but I'm not causing fear and pain.
To some dogs, it's mildly discomforting, but not all dogs, and you don't know until
I get that. And I mean, there are some dogs you can really see the fallout, and then there's other dogs where you look at them and you're like, well, they look really happy.
Yeah, but adrenaline masks a lot of that, because
Sure.
that's some of the arguments that people use for fight dogs, right? Because one of the big questions I had about fight dogs who go into the pit, they do the job, they get out, and they go back. Because again, we're dealing with people who aren't going to be like, oh, you're a little scared to come in, and they're going to lure the fucking dog. They're going to grab the dog by the goddamn collar and say, you're fighting. These are thugs. They're criminals, right? So the dog can't be resistant anyway, because they're not going to have time for it. So the dog has to just walk in and do it. And I did an interview with Dr. Jessica Heckman, who's neuroscience, and I talked to, I forget his name. He was a neuroscience teacher in North Carolina. And my question was, so are these dogs who can go into a fight pit, do that, come out without any really egregious fallout and go back and do it again, are they just really good at processing all those glucocorticoids? Are they really good, like a boxer or people who jump out of airplanes, like they feel the fear but do it anyway, and they can just, and they were basically like, the short answer is yeah, there's just some dogs who might be able to do that. Just like there's some dogs who can charge at a 700-pound bull. They might be a little scared, but they ain't that scared. Maybe they're not scared at all. I don't know. Maybe they really like doing this, right? Maybe their cellular DNA is kicking in. Like, yeah, my grandfather did it and his father, and I just like chasing bulls. Maybe, I don't know. But, yeah, there are dogs who can weather that stuff, but very rare. Lewis Colby, I don't know if you know Lewis Colby, very famous pit bull breeder in America. In his book, he said maybe 5, maybe 10 dogs out of 100 had the right stuff to go fight other dogs and not have any, right? And I would say it would probably be more like 3 to 5 out of 100, knowing what I know about dogs and knowing about pit, if it's an actual pit bull terrier, that's a whole other thing. Like I always tell people, don't forget, it's got to be terrier in there. If it's a 100-pound dog that looks blocky, it's probably some Frankenbull, right? It's because they bred those dogs to be kind of small, because they had to pick them up in the cattle pit, they had to pick them up in the dog pit, right? They didn't have like 90-pound dogs. I topped out at like 60, 65 pounds at best. Most of them were like 45, 50 pounds. The females were like 28, 30. I mean, one of the most famous fight dogs in history from Colby was like 28 pounds. right? They're not big dogs. But anyway,
I don't know that you know this, so I'm going to share this with you. So, how I ended up really crossing over, I
yeah, I
had some
wanted to ask you
trainers.
that.
Yeah, I had some trainers working for me. Obviously, they were a lot younger than I am, and mentoring them. And I had mentioned to them that I felt that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Down the road, I said to them, I don't think it's going to affect me, but I definitely think it'll affect you if you stay in the field. That the dog training industry is going to be regulated. There's going to be mandatory licensure down the road. And so I said, and it looks like things are really moving away from the use of force. So you better get certified. You better learn this, because there might be a time down the road where you're not going to be able to use the prong collar, not be able to use the e-collar. And we were doing e-collars at the time. And so I'm the kind of person, if I'm going to ask you to do something, I'm not going to make you do something and I don't do it. Okay. I didn't expect what happened to happen. So, as I'm looking at the certification and what I need to do, there's recommended reading and things that I've got to learn and all this education that I had to do. And my psychology degree is in human psychology, so that's pretty different. And most of everything I learned was just tradition. I mean, I started training with my dad in 1975 when I was like 9 years old. The Keeler method. Everything was yank and crank. We didn't even praise the dog back then.
Sure.
And then, you start interacting with other dog trainers that are doing things like you're doing. And it's just, hey, this is the way everybody does it, and just, I mean, literally most of it tradition. And, as I'm reading, as I'm learning and I'm getting into it, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, because I spent years, you talk about videos. I used to do videos just beating up total positive reinforcement force-free trainers, just trying to just break them off at the kneecaps. Okay. I mean, I was vicious, brutal.
That's too bad.
And it is, and it was. But, I read through this stuff and I didn't look at it and say, oh, this is all bullshit. I read through it and I'm going, interesting. And through that process, I realized I was the one that was wrong.
Oh, good on you. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Obviously, you didn't get your letters and your education overnight.
Sure.
So you had this education of yours while you were causing dogs fear and pain. How do you
Absolutely.
reconcile that?
Again, and this is what I think about too. I think about that a lot, and I think about that as I'm getting new information today, because I realize how horrible my confirmation bias was. Okay.
Yeah, imagine.
And today, crossing over to force free, now I start, especially when I'm talking to other balanced trainers, and I'm like wanting to just shake them by the head, going, "Why the fuck don't you get this?" And then I think to myself, well, Will, you didn't get it.
Right. And there's nothing like a convert, right? The old adage, like, there's nothing like a convert. They become,
Somebody said it's like being a reformed smoker.
right. Right. Or somebody who's like becomes Christian and born again, like, right. And that, look, we're all human first. That's what I tell my clients. You're human first, everything after that, and humans are flawed, right? I was very lucky that early on, I got a copy of The Culture Clash by Gene Donaldson, and my ex was like, we're not going to do this prong collar anymore. And I was like, okay, yeah, it seems like it's a bad idea, right? And it was just a fast track towards learning. I fell in the right camp super early, and I had no last dog baggage. I had no bias. I was just like, look, I want to have an easy time with my dog, right? I love this little creature. I want to make sure he's cool. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because you do have, neurobiological info. I use oops as a warning cue for timeouts,
Okay.
right? Whether it's like I go to give a puppy or a dog a treat and they go to take it and I'll go, oops, time out the treat, right? Little micro timeout. Or, they're looking at the table and I go, oops, and they jump and they get on the table and I time them out. So oops ends up becoming the warning that timeout's next. Okay.
Right. So it's a conditioned punisher.
It is, but it's more like.
I mean, that's the technical term. Yeah.
Sure. So my question is, because I want to know why oops, in particular, oops, especially in a falsetto, why that is so salient to dogs. Now, I know that sound is processed by the medial geniculate nucleus, and I know that it's less precise than visual. And I know that the ascending reticular activating system is for general alertness and novelty of sounds. So that's kind of where I'm thinking why that is. But I was just wondering, did you have any insights on, because I'm telling you, the next time you're with a dog, if you can go, oops, boy, and then you pair that with a timeout. I mean, I've had a matter of fact, I had a client years ago. She emailed me and she said, "You're a genius. I can't tell you how amazing oops is. She's doing dishes, kids are at the table doing homework, husband lets the dog in, the dog's going for the kids, the beeline to jump on him, and she's doing dishes, and she goes, oops, and the dog goes and lays down." And I said, "Well, I'm not a genius. I'm just good at explaining stuff." I said, "But good on you, because obviously you taught your dog that if they continue past the oops, they get timed out. So good on you." But I'm just like, why? Because I saved 2 dogs in the past 2 years from getting hit in the street by going, oops, at the top of my lungs. I never met these dogs. They were just running in the street, and I would happen to be there, and I went, oops, and they just ran back. So I don't know, man. Why do dogs respond so well to oops?
Do you think it's the oops or the tonality?
That could be a little of both.
Yeah.
But if I do it loud or quiet, it still works.
Sure.
It works across. I mean, yes, I have a voice that's trained and I have command of it, but my clients don't, and they get the same job done with it. Hence that story. I wanted to ask you that while we're here, because
I don't know. I put a note down. I'm going to look into it because, like I said,
when you're with dogs, try it. Just them and see how they recalibrate super quick. And the reason why I started doing it years ago is to save myself and other people legwork for timeouts. Because if you can get the dog to recalibrate by going, oops. Now, somebody wants to, well, can't you use leave it? Yes, you can. But the problem is that leave it does not predict timeout unless every time your dog doesn't leave something, you issue a timeout, which is impossible, because you might ask your dog to leave a squirrel, but then they're blowing that off. So you need a touch to redirect them back to target your hand. I mean, I can do an on-leash timeout. Right, I know how to wrangle the leash up real quick and be like, "Sorry, kid, you can't lunge out for cats," and time the dog out on leash. But I like to use specific things. Like, again, I always tell my clients, if you use the yes marker, it's got to be paired with food. You may see videos of people using clickers and a tennis ball, but you need that marker to predict food. And they go, "Why?" I go, "Because you need it for counter conditioning." Right? You need it. You need the dog to go, "Oh, when I hear yes and that big truck is coming, oh, well, I better, So, just curious about that.
So I want to make sure that I understand your question really well. So restate the question, because I'm making little notes here about the oops and the timeout.
Yeah. So I oops, and then if the dog continues, I time them out. And it could be a macro timeout, which is, doggy jail for 10 seconds. Or it could be a micro timeout. The dog's in front of the door, crack the door 1/4 inch. I haven't released them. They move. I shut the door. It's a micro timeout.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it all the time.
What was your question about it
I just want to know neurologically, why is oops so salient? I mean, it's a novel sound. I think that's why yes works better than a clicker, because you can draw the S out at the end for a little extra prompt. A clicker is very static. So I can go, yes, right, from across the play group, and the dog will come running versus, clickers are loud, but they're not as loud as a human voice.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you don't have to become a thumb expert, which is why, clickers are fine. I don't have anything against them or people who use them, but I tell my clients, you don't need one more skill to learn. You're already talking. Just say yes to mark your dog.
The only exception that I make with that, and it's just more a preference, and it might be just again, more confirmation bias, I don't know. Most of what I do with clients is counter conditioning and desensitization for reactivity, fears, phobias, aggression.
Okay.
And I like the clicker for counter conditioning and desensitization. For other skills, we might use a verbal marker.
Okay.
I want to make things so clear, so black and white, and really connect those dots so clearly.
Sure.
And that's why I do that. The other thing that I do, some people do it, not everybody does it. So, for example, let's say that the dog is reactive to people. Okay. And so here I've got the dog, right? And there's no person in view. We've selected our distance, which we feel is going to be safe, right? Where the dog's going to be below threshold. And then here comes that person into view. Well, as soon as the dog notices that person, if the dog truly is in a good neutral state, that we picked our distance good, I'll immediately have them click. Now the dog's been, preconditioned. That click means, yeah, I'm getting food. However, the other thing I do is they get an incredible yummy food paste coming out of a squeeze bottle, which is something I do differently,
Yeah.
right?
That's nice.
And I do it for several reasons. One, once the food starts, I want that food. So here's my trigger. And I want that food to start immediately when the dog notices that trigger. And I want there to be a constant stream of food, no breaks, with me popping new treats in the dog's mouth. Don't want to do that. I don't want any break in the food. As soon as that person's out of there, bam, pull the food. I want it to be so clear. And of course, the other reason is they're getting less. Okay. So my sessions can usually go a little bit longer than if they start getting really full, you're giving them big pieces of food. To me, they start getting satiated faster and then it loses its value. The other reason I like the squeeze bottle is because imagine this is my squeeze bottle, my nozzle. I can steer where the dog is looking so that they're continuing to look at that trigger.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So when you're doing this, and again, all dogs are different, environments different, right? But what I look for when I'm doing, because I, like yourself, I specialize in counter conditioning, and I've made a lot of videos on it, and I continue to make videos on it. One of the things I look for is, and you may see this too with the clicker, is the dog jumping the marker. So before you can even mark, the dog sees the stimulus and they're turning back, and then I mark for the turn back.
Well, we start with first kind of like look at that. I think Leslie McDevitt teaches initially. They see the dog click, they turn back, get food. They see the dog click, they turn back, get food.
Well, they don't always turn back, though. They don't always turn back. Right?
They should if we're below threshold. If they really
not necessarily, right?
Okay, let me hear you out on this.
Well, every dog's different, right?
Yeah.
When I do counter conditioning with reactive dogs, even if I have a test dog with my assistant and I have the proper distance and they're under threshold, it doesn't mean that they're going to look back right away. But every dog's different, right? I mean, they don't always look back when you say yes. Sometimes they're just focused on the dog, and I just put the food in their mouth because obviously we need to get the reinforcer in there, right? But again, all dogs are different. But I look for the dog to jump the marker or to pop off the marker. So when they hear yes, they're turning back. Again, a lot of times, it's mix and match, right? And real world training's messy. So we're not in a laboratory and we can't just control everything. I tell my clients, okay, so let's say your dog's orienting to another dog, a bike, whatever the stimulus is, right? Yes, 1001, 1002. Yeah, so every 2 seconds, I'm marking and paying. Let's say the event's going to unfold over 7 seconds. I might get 2 or 3 mark and pays in, but then on the 4th one, the dog jumps the marker and I mark and pay, right? And then on the next one, the dog looks and he jumps the marker and I mark and pay for the turn back. I mean, it's jazz. It's you got to improvise. I mean, it's not all, the dog doesn't always pop off the marker when they hear it, even if they're under threshold and the stimulus is controlled as best as you can. Sometimes they're just, again, when it comes to dog reactivity, dogs are way more salient than people or traffic, right? Because the other dog may also be giving that dog eye contact, which is a threat signal. The other dog, even if they're a test dog and they're fine, they might be moving a little bit or whatever, you know? So, hey man, again, like I said earlier, I do not drag people for being positive trainers. You want to use a food dispensing thing and a clicker, that's cool, right? You're not hurting dogs anymore, man. That's all I'm happy about. You really know your stuff. You're not a stupid person. You understand behavior, which is great. You know, I personally, I wouldn't use, I like the food tube thing for some things, especially for recall, because then you can really get the dog, right? Because sometimes at the end of the recall, people fumble with the treat. So if they grab the dog and they got the squeeze bottle in their hand, you know, I personally wouldn't use a food dispensing thing to guide the dog's mouth or head. I would just use a lure, like a nose lure. That's just me. Again, dude, if you're, hey man, if you're having results and they're good results and your clients are happy and the dogs are happy.
Yeah, I get good results. I don't know if
That's
what
all
I'm
I care about.
doing, I don't know if what I'm doing makes things necessarily more clear because I'm not capturing data and doing it both ways, you know?
Well, if you were so inclined, I would highly recommend you start filming. And you know, because you're, first of all, you're too knowledgeable, you're too good of a presenter to not have content. I understand why you took your old content down, and that's admirable. And I'm glad you saw the light, so to speak. Look, man, I wanted to talk to you just about our exchange we had on Facebook.
Sure.
Because it was a little, you know, it was a little contentious. It wasn't like, you know, like I don't hate you or anything.
I didn't mean it, just so you know, I didn't mean it to be contentious. I
know you
was
didn't.
really trying to.
Now that I talked to you, I get it. I get it. And, but if I may just offer a slight bit of advice, I don't know how old are you, by the way?
I'll be 60 in February.
I just turned 60, so we're two old men. Two old dudes just talking. We love dogs, right? And I'm glad that you're in the game. I really am, and I'm glad I did this today. But because I know you're a smart dude, man, just be mindful. Like when you say a sentence like, I won't say ignorant, but rigid, right? Like, again, like I'm not a fragile person, so I'm not going to get offended, but I'll definitely let somebody know, like, hey man, don't talk to me like that. Like, that's like, I don't deserve that. Like, I've been in the game a minute. Like, I've been doing this a while, you know, and if you want to say, hey man, I don't agree with you, you know, then give me some real stuff. Like the thing you sent me about the dude's dog getting out and killing chickens and packing up with that wasn't a study. That was a story. That wasn't, it was a study of one, right? It wasn't like you had like, you know, 75 dogs in the study. Again, especially if I've been able to detect through social media or YouTube, whatever, like, okay, wow, this person, like, they're using science, they're smart. I see that they love dogs. They're not causing them fear and pain. I'm going to talk to them respectfully, right? And I know sometimes that can be lost in social media communications. Again, man, do what you want. You're a grown man. I'm not here to police you, but in terms of how I am when we deal with each other, like, just, you know, be mindful of that, because I'm definitely, I don't let shit go, because at the end of the day, I don't care how many letters somebody has after their name. It means shit to me. If I don't even know you could train a dog. Now, I talked to you today for almost 2 hours. I know you know how to train dogs, buddy. I don't need to see you do it, right? You've been doing it long enough. You've got a lot of experience. But, you know, because at the end of the day, all that stuff doesn't matter. I like to see what you're doing in the room or in the real world with the dog. Timing and mechanics of reinforcement and kind consequences. Let me see that skill set. All the other stuff, the book learning, it's great, man. I love studying. I love doing all that stuff, right? But at the end of the day, you know, going to another dog seminar doesn't really help you become a better dog trainer. It doesn't. Filming yourself and critiquing yourself, filming yourself and looking at environmental contingencies, filming yourself and seeing what your clients are doing, filming your dogs and seeing what they're doing, that will be better than any seminar, any book you could ever read. read because that's what you're doing. And I think one of the problems in our side of this culture is people are so hopped up on like learning and books and seminars. And it's like, yeah, well, how many seminars are you going to go to, man? Like, what are they really teaching you? Like after a while, it's like, right? Like if you know what you're doing, if you know Pavlov, Skinner, you know, you got enough information about how the brain works, like get to it. Right. And I think you should get back into making media. If you lived in my area or vice versa, I would volunteer to come film you training dogs, and I would edit it and put it out because you're too good at presenting to not have content, buddy. Like I know you told me when we were talking and messaging that, you know, you don't think the video would be, you know, interesting. And I agree. And you shouldn't do anything to cause the dog any duress at all. I don't. Right. If you see a dog in a video that's freaking out, it's because, well, that's the environment, man. It just happened and you see me responding. I didn't do it on purpose. And people have accused me of that. I'm like, dude, that dog came out of nowhere. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I just had to move. Right. So, yeah, that would be my only thing, man, is, you know, just think about that. Because the last thing we need to do is have our side, you know, I just got in, you know, and again, when I make a statement like, you know, and again, we can't get into this now because I definitely got to go. Like I got dogs to take care of and food to make and all that. But, you know, when I say, you know, all aggression's rooted in fear and everybody like loses their mind, so far, like nobody's really given me any data that's made me change it can always be traced back. Like one woman said, well, this female dog growled at me when I went near her puppies. Yeah, she's afraid for her puppies. She's trying to protect her puppies. She's afraid something's going to happen to her kids, right? And then somebody else was trying to tell me, you know, again, like, you know, I take studies with a grain of salt. A lot of these studies were done in a static environment with rats with electrodes in their brain. That ain't a dog on leash in public. That ain't a dog living in a house with two dogs. And I need to have context. I need to have data that's relevant so I can figure out what's happening. You know, you could talk to me about Panskeep and this one and that one and all that. You know, that's great. It's data. It's information. I'll apply it where needed. But, you know, at the end of the day, what's really sad is there haven't been that many really bona fide legitimate studies about dog behavior. There really haven't. There's been more studies on the fruit fly.
Yeah,
you know?
a lot of that I think is ethical
but
constraints when it
you know
comes
what,
to the
though?
dogs.
If I ever hit the lottery and I've got a disgusting amount of money,
Yeah.
I will do a study because there's nothing but dogs living in shelters who could use a break. There's nothing. There's millions of dogs in this country who could be volunteered for a study, and the study could be done ethically. You don't have to cause dogs fear. We don't need to shock another animal to find out what the brain does when it receives electricity. Can we be done with that? We already know. We got enough data, right? Like we don't.
You'd think so, but
Yeah, we do, bro. It sucks.
Yeah.
Dogs don't like it, and there's fallout, and there's a slim, small segment of dogs who might be able to weather it. Just like there's this many dogs who are bred to herd cattle, right? Like Dr. Karen Overall, when I interviewed her, which, by the way, I'm the only person who's ever interviewed her. I mean, she's done a few other things, like at seminars and stuff, but I sat down in her living room and talked to her for 4 hours. So, and she said, 90% of the dogs who are bred for a purpose, whatever that purpose is, sniff out bombs, guide the blind, said 90% of them fail, either from genetics, environmental causes, the person training them, whatever it is. There's like a 10% success rate among dogs that are bred for a specific purpose. And that goes right in line with what Lewis Colby said. That and again, Lewis Colby, who bred pit bulls, he admits, I don't know shit. I'm just going to tell you what we did and what I think. But he said maybe 5 to 10 dogs out of 100 could do it, could go fight other dogs and not have a real big, like they could just do it and come back out and go do it again. Right. And Karen Overall and Lewis Colby don't know each other at all. They're not in cahoots. So, and she's extreme science-based, you know, more letters after her name than the alphabet, head of behavior at UPenn. Like Overall is, you know, she's top of the list, right? Lewis Colby, just a dog breeder, doesn't know any science. So they came with the same data point. So, I really like to know if somebody can do it. I like, and it's hard because not everybody puts out content, but yeah, I like to know what people's mechanics and timing are. And, can they train and explain at the same time? Can they? Right? Because I can do it all the time. But I'm glad we met. I'm glad we talked. Thanks for doing this. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. And, one of the things I really appreciate is, in the discussion, you keep bringing back what actually matters, and that's protecting the dogs, protecting the
100%.
families, helping the pet guardians make informed decisions. And like you said, keeping things safe.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, well, Gene Donaldson at the Academy for Dog Trainers said your whole point as a pet dog trainer is to keep the dog in the house if you can. That's the whole point. Can we keep the dog in the house and not have him shipped off to a shelter or a rescue, right? Because they were shitting on the rug and somebody said they're dominant, get rid of him, he's a bad dog. And there's people out there taking money and saying dumb things like that, right? So
Yeah.
that's another reason why people like you and I or any of our colleagues, why we need to stop this bullshit. We really need to cut out all this fighting and infighting and all this other stuff, right? I got accused of mansplaining the other day, and I'm like, oh, well, I see where your bias is. That's cute. Like, I'm not. What are you talking about, mansplaining? I'm just talking to another human being. I don't care if you're a female, a male, black, white, straight, gay. It doesn't matter. We're talking about dogs, right? I haven't earned enough equity in this culture. All the shit that I've done, all the stuff I've put out, you don't know my heart's in the right place. And I'm asking questions. Yeah, I made a statement. It's really bold. Okay, prove me wrong. Okay, right. Like, and then and there's Marta Hoffman, great trainer, super smart. I asked for a example of aggression where there's no fear, and she brought up Belgian Malinois. So I posted up on my thread. I said, hey, are there any Belgian Malinois experts in my followers? And this dude messaged me. We had a great conversation about, and he was like, because I asked him, I go, talk to me about this, from the dog's perspective. You've had Mals, bite, chase, bite, hold. And he said there's no fear involved in that. And he doesn't consider it aggression. It's, unless you use shock. He goes, then they mess the dog up. Then it is fear-based. He goes, but it's like play for the dog, right? They just see this big bite suit guy and they just, right? And they go and get it. I've watched a lot of police dog videos, like a lot. And what's great is the dog never fails. Gets the guy every time. And he was saying, and then that made me think, I'm like, yeah, it's like when your dog's playing tug and they're growling, it looks and sounds aggressive, but it's not. And the human analogy is you hear kids in a backyard screaming bloody murder and you look in and you're like, oh, they're just playing soccer. Oh, okay. Yeah. Because they're 7. They're running around screaming their head off. So, he doesn't consider that aggressive. Again, it's the same thing like the dog chases down prey. They're just getting dinner. It's messy. It's not elegant. It's violent, but that's animals. That's, that's how they work. They don't put on a napkin and cut their meat. They just tear the shit out of it. And again, like a lot of stuff we do, you have to you have to take a macro overview, I think, because when you start parsing stuff out and then it just becomes pedantic and we're just like, fear's on a spectrum, right? It's on a spectrum. Your dog might be slightly scared of having its nail clipped and petrified of thunder. Your dog might not give a shit about thunder and for whatever reason, be afraid of riding in a car. I don't know, right? So again, a lot of times, if you don't have the data, you have to say, I really don't know, right? And that's one of the other things the Academy for Dog Trainers taught me is don't be afraid to say, I don't know.
Absolutely.
And, anyway, man, glad to meet you today. Thanks again.
Thanks for your advocacy, the work you did with the price of pain, your commitment to educating pet parents and trainers too, because we look to what you have. We're going to, for everybody listening, we'll have links in the show notes to Drayton's work, including where you can watch the price of pain and also find the puppy parents handbook. We didn't have time to talk about that,
Worries.
but strongly want to encourage everybody to take the time to check out those resources. And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, if you're not in the New Jersey area, info@moderndogtraining.com. And if you are in the South Jersey, Central Jersey area, you can get me at info@urbandogs, DAWGS, urbandogs.com. At Urban Dogs, Instagram, at Modern Dog Training, YouTube, Drayton Michaels, Facebook. And I would also like to say, which I always say this to all the trainers I connect with, if there's ever anything you think I could help you with, which, I mean, you're more than equipped to do whatever you need to, but don't ever hesitate, man.
No, I appreciate it.
You know, whatever it is. If there's anything I could ever help you with, don't ever hesitate.
I'm probably going to take you up on it when it comes to being able to find tools or programs or software for making videos and editing, because that's why I didn't do a lot of it. Even now, the stuff I'm doing right now, I'm frustrated. I am so frustrated.
It's super
using this thing called Veed. The damn thing crashes like a million times.
I have Veed. Yeah, that's not the way to go. I'll give you and again, you don't have to put this in the release when you put this up. Get what's the program I use? CapCut.
AppCut?
CapCut.
Okay.
CapCut. Yeah, get the desktop version. They also have one on your phone, but you want to edit video on your desktop.
Yeah.
Get a GoPro.
Okay.
Get a GoPro and get the chest strap so you wear it on your chest so your hands free. Now the GoPro on your chest is going to get the dog and maybe a little bit of the environment in front of the dog. It won't get you. Mm-hmm. So what I do with clients is I have them hold this GoPro. Say, keep it chin height, stay within 10 feet. So I have this, which gets me and the dog and the environment, and then I have the GoPro on my chest. And what's good about the GoPro on your chest is it's really good vocal mic. So you'll get all the stuff you're talking about really clear. So then I have B-roll and A-roll, or however you want to term it. CapCut's super easy to learn. Again, I've been editing video for a long time, and I've edited music. So I kind of editing is editing, and software is software after a certain point. But CapCut is really easy to use. There's tons of YouTube channels with tutorials. You should be even if you don't release it, buddy, you should be cataloging every single session you do with people, just so that you go to write the plan, or they call you back 2 weeks later and you're like, shit, what the hell you can just pop the video on and just fast forward. Oh, that's what, okay. I mean, it's really good for that kind of stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've had a follow-up session like 30 days after the initial session. And I'm like, I remember those people, but let me just watch, And again, Bob Bailey said, man, if you're not filming your training, you're kind of a fraud. Because you can't remember. I mean, at our age,
Yeah, the filming's not the problem. It was always the editing. So I'm going to check out that CapCut.
Here's the thing about editing, right? Here's the thing about editing. So I do a 90-minute session.
Okay.
If the client's like, yeah, you could put this out, all I need are the salient bits.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I only need a minute or 4 minutes, right? Again, you got a good setup. You can record an intro, or you can do a voiceover. Look, man, you're not a stupid guy. I can already tell. Anybody who's done as much education as you're a smart dude. You'll figure out editing. Editing is
well, it's a lot easier today with the stuff that's out there. But like I said, I like Veed, but man, the thing, I'll be 2 minutes into it, crash. Then I got to send an email, get a code. 2 minutes into it, crash. It's like I can't get it.
That might have something to do with your computer. Are you working on a Mac or a PC?
I'm on a Dell laptop, a PC.
That might be part of the problem. I mean, I'm not like a PC snob, but when it comes to editing video, Macintosh is the way to go. I had PCs for years, and I stopped because I'm like, and I used to have people build my PCs. I did have a Dell laptop at one point, but they just seem really susceptible to viruses, and like Macs are kind of like Volvos, like they just run.
Yeah, forever. I've got an old MacBook Air. It's a 2013, but it was kind of
The problem with the only problem with all computers is that they change coding all the time,
yeah.
right? Like, and so like I had an old Mac from like 2012, and they were like, well, Microsoft Word no longer works with that computer. And you're like, really? You're gonna fucking do all this shit to me?
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna change it up on me? So that's one of the things that is problematic with older computers. There may be some things that the coding and the architecture of certain softwares won't be compatible anymore. I have that with like some of my music gear. Like I can't update operating systems because the music gear is like, we don't work with that yet. So yeah, man, any help you need with that, but really like make it a priority, bro. You're way too smart. You're way too good at presenting to not be putting out content. And remember, shorter is better. Like I just put out a video. I haven't put it out yet. My bad. I just edited them this morning. 2 really short little videos. About one was from a dog walk, watching a woman walk 2 dogs and completely struggling, and like talked about all the shit she could have done better. And another one with this dog play in my backyard about deferment and how like look at this great reading of dog play. People like short content. I mean, my documentary has 20,000 views on Facebook because it has 243 shares because there's like 12 people in it. So, it's how it works. The more people that are in your film, they're going to tell people in there. Right. But yeah, you should be making short content, man. You should be putting out videos, even if it's just you talking about stuff with video over it. Right. Like, yeah, we need all the content warriors in our culture to be doing it overtime. Like, I wish I had more time and energy to make. If I do hit the lottery, I will hire people because I have 125 hard drives filled with dog training over the last.
That's amazing.
Well, I get a little obsessive when I do.
That's what you were saying.
I tend to get a little deep, But again, when Bob Bailey really kicked the shit out of me because I was filming, but I wasn't like I don't go anywhere without my GoPro on my chest. Anywhere. I don't deal with people. I mean, there are people that I don't turn it on for, but like if I'm talking to somebody, boom, it's on. And people are like, why do you wear that? I'm like, just in case, bro. If I don't need it, I can erase it when I get home. But I've caught a lot of stuff. I just put up a video on my Facebook page of a woman giving me death threats.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Are you serious, bro? Like, really? If I didn't have that GoPro.
Yeah.
Which I gave the video to my client, and she was like, I guess I've been too nice. And I had to tell her, well, you know me well, because I've known them a long time. I've known them almost 20 years. Like, I've done a lot of work with all their dogs, their kids' dogs. Both, matter of fact, that client, her daughter's dog and her dog are with me right now. And I wouldn't have been able to give that to her. So now her and the neighbor talk, and the neighbor can create whatever narrative she wants about me. But now you can't create a fake narrative about me. I have it on film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's why I do it. So you can't create a fake narrative. You can't call me 2 weeks after the dog training session and say, you said to do this. I'm like, no, I didn't. It's on film. Why would I tell you to do that? You must be got me confused with somebody else. So it's a great way to cover your butt because people are wacky out here these days, right? You never know, right? Number 2, you can get better, which I know I can tell from you coming off.
I agree with that because I'm always.
And 3, you can help the masses, right? And you're too good to not have content about dog training and behavior, buddy, right? And like I've made videos that I thought were amazing that got barely any views, but I'm like, this is a great video. I don't know why people don't like it. And then I've made videos that were a joke that gets 100,000 views. I don't know. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about the followers. Just make great content. And remember, it's your legacy too. It's a great way to keep your legacy, right? When you're dead and gone, man, you're going to want to have as much of you out there helping people. That's the other thing. Like, one last story and then I'll jump. I have a video on my YouTube channel. I made it back like 2009 or 10. It's called Counter Conditioning. It's all about doing leash reactivity. It's got over 50,000, 60,000 views. And one of the comments was from a woman from Russia. And she said, this video saved my life. She goes, thank you so much.
Wow.
So I messaged her and I said, hey, give me your email address. I want to help you. And what I wanted to know was, could I do a remote consult with somebody in Russia and have success? Right?
Yeah.
And I did. She said where she lived in Russia, she had a big like German Shepherd dog, and it was really reactive. And she said that if the wrong people get a hold of me, if they complain about this dog, they just take them from me. They don't even talk to you. So if somebody says her dog's a problem, they don't even have a conversation. They're like, nope, the people in your neighborhood said this dog's dangerous, we're taking him. And I said, we can't let that happen.
Yeah.
Just through a bunch of emails back and forth, asking questions, telling her to look at this video, that. And she said, you saved me and my dog's life. So if that's the only story I ever had from putting out a YouTube video, I win.
That's a great story.
But I've got dozens and dozens of stuff like that from just making videos, right? And when it's funny, like whenever I get somebody who like, you could tell they don't know what they're talking about, I just say, I'm sorry, I don't punch below my weight class. Good luck. Bro. If I talk to you, I'm going to have to invoice you. I've said that to people. Yeah. I can't talk to you about dogs. If I talk to you about dogs, I have to send you an invoice. Why? Because you don't know what you're doing. And I do. Sorry. Yeah, you're not going to just roll on me. I just laugh at people. I'm like, oh, really? That's funny. Oh, the latest one is, well, you need to use a really expensive prong collar, not a cheap one. I'm like, yeah, spend more money to choke a dog. That makes sense. So, all right, buddy, I really got to jump. Have a great
sir.
day.
Hey, appreciate you taking all the time. I know that kept you here longer. I said I wouldn't.
I'm really glad I stayed, man. I'm glad I did this long form. I think it's going to be really helpful, and hopefully it will help some of our colleagues be a little bit more friendly to each other and not be so snipey, because that's a big problem we got here with our crew. But have a good holiday too, man. I don't know what you're doing, but
just hanging out at home with family. So
nice.
Low key for the most part, but enjoying the 80-degree weather that we're having right now in Phoenix. You can't go wrong with that.
Right. All right. Well, I'll be enjoying the 26-degree weather here. All right, brother. You take it away, man. I'll see you later.
All right. Thanks, man. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.